Hey, how you going? I'm Ryan, this is Ryan's Music Talk, and today I'm going to be ranking the 5 studio albums of Pierce the Veil. Now, while I wouldn't say Pierce the Veil are one of my absolute favourite bands, I do really like a lot of their music, and I did have a lot of fun going back over their albums in preparation for this. So, with that said, let's get into it. Number 5, Selfish Machines, released in June of 2010. Unfortunately, while I don't think this is a bad album, I do find it quite unmemorable. Even after listening to it for the last couple of days, I can still only really recall the singles Bulletproof Love and Caraphernalia. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But yeah, the rest of the track list just seems quite easily forgotten, which is a shame. But having said that, I do really enjoy those two songs, especially Caraphernalia, which also features some really good guest vocals from A Day to Remember's Jeremy McKinnon. Number 4, A Flair for the Dramatic, released in June of 2007. This was Pierce the Veil's first album. It's a very 2000s post-hardcore sound, although it probably is a bit more experimental than a lot of the other post-hardcore acts of the time. It's a shame though that this sort of suffers in the same way that Selfish Machines does, and that it is quite forgettable in parts. The album opener, Chemical Kids and Mechanical Brides, is, I think, easily the most memorable track off the album, while Yeah Boy and Dollface is another that I do really enjoy. But as I said, I do struggle to recall many more other than that. Number 3, Misadventures, released in May 2016. I've a pretty big gap between this and my number 4 spot, and the main reason for that is that this isn't a forgettable album. Songs like Circles, Dive In, Texas is Forever, and Today I Saw the Whole World are some of my favourites. While it's still mostly a post-hardcore album, you could sort of start to hear them going in a little bit of a different direction. I think the song Floral and Fading is much more of an alternative rock track, which, despite it still being 7 years before their next release, I think is a little point in the direction that they were going to be heading. Number 2, Collide with the Sky, released in July 2012. This is their most straight-up post-hardcore album. It doesn't have the experimental rock components of the previous two, or the alternative rock of the following one. It's also their most well-known album, and for a long time it was my favourite, and I'm sure it probably still is for a lot of people. Plenty of classics on this one: Hell Above, A Match into Water, Bulls in the Bronx, Hold On Till May, and of course their most famous song, and probably arguably the best post-hardcore song of the entire 2010s, King for a Day, which features Kellen Quinn from Sleeping with Sirens. Number 1, The Jaws of Life, released February 2023. Normally, I'd have a hard time putting an album this new, this high up, but that's just how much I really enjoy this. They've completely ditched the post-hardcore sound and gone for a more grungy 90s alternative rock sound, but still managed to keep it fresh and modern sounding, which I think is really impressive. Everything about this album works for me. The song Death of an Executioner has quickly become my favourite by them. Past the Nirvana, Emergency Contact, So Far So Fake, and Even When I'm Not With You, some other highlights of this album for me. Really, if you haven't heard this album yet, I strongly recommend you go and check it out. It is great. Really great. So that's my list. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. If you do disagree, leave your list. I'd love to check it out. So that's it for today. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.